we have members of Congress wanting to, I don't know, punish a certain minister who delivered an incredible sermon about being kind and being empathetic and understanding, and also wanting to deem Antifa as a terrorist organization, because I'm sure that's really, really important, and the American people care about that, right, Felice?
Yeah, I mean, this is madness, but I mean, this is MAGA, right? It's dear leader wants, this is what they want. I mean, which one is Margarine, the Antifa one? And then the
Correct.
minister is that guy from Oklahoma. I never knew who he was until the 118th Congress. Josh, what is his name?
Josh, I think it's Brasheen.
And just to be, we're talking about two, just because facts just called this to my attention. There are two House resolutions, one from Margarine. Like, they are actually going to pass a House resolution to condemn that woman who said, what did she say? Like, hey, could you have mercy on these minority groups?
Exactly. Exactly. This is how it reads. Hold on. This is how it reads.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So, HRES 59, expressing the sense. First of all, I didn't even know you could put that in a House resolution, but whatever. Expressing the sense of the House of Representatives that the sermon given by the Right Reverend Marianne Edgar Buddy at the National Prayer Service on January 21st, 2025 at the National Cathedral was a display of political activism and condemning its distorted message.
Exactly. Was a display of political what is political about saying, please have mercy on this group of people?
Yeah,
right?
Be kind, right? Be kind.
And I talk about this a lot, like when you're deconstructing from religion, because I grew up in deep, deep evangelicalism, right? And there's two types of religion in my view, right? There is New Testament Christianity, which teaches tolerance and empathy and mercy and kindness and love. And then there's whatever is going on with the conservatives, exactly. Which is basically it's to divide. And I mean, this is what you learn. Like, I personally have a degree in history, and that is what you learn over time. You watch how Christianity is not about what is taught in the New Testament. It's a tool to control the masses, to amass power and to amass wealth. Like, who owns the largest real estate portfolio in the world? That's the Catholic Church, tax-free. The largest real estate portfolio in the world is owned tax-free. And I think now more than ever, that is what religion is. The House resolution numbers are, I put them in my Discord, right, when Fax sent them to me in the general chat. I sent them to everyone.
After you said OMFG.
Exactly. Oh my God. I had just these. It's House Resolution. Gosh, we're at the beginning of a new Congress. It's so scary. It's House Resolution 26 and House Resolution 59.
I'm trying to find what he said on True Social about Reverend Buddy, and I'll find it.
Who's he? Josh or are you talking about Trump?
The twice impeached, 4-time indicted, sexually abusing fraudster felon who was reelected by dumb Americans.
I probably have the clip somewhere too. But I mean, that is, God, I could watch over and over, like, his face.
Oh, I know. And then JD Vance kind of turning away, like shaking his head, like, what the hell is he doing? Let me see if I can find it, because I think it's relevant right now. The other one that we should talk about too, this one, first of all, Felice, I love that every time you refer to the certain representative from Georgia, you only ever call her Margarine. You don't call it. Everybody knows who the fuck you're talking about. It's hilarious. It's hilarious.
Good old Margarine. She's not even butter, not even the real thing. And I mean, imagine. We'll talk about it, but yeah, I think what we need to really examine is what what in my opinion, Christianity is supposed to be, which is about empathy, love, tolerance, kindness, mercy, joy, community, all of those good things, and how now, right, it's being used as a tool, and was used as a tool in Germany, right, in the 1930s and 1940s to other, certain groups of people.
We're going to dig into that. So just as a reminder, so this one, HRES 26 is deeming certain conduct of members of Antifa as domestic T organizations and designating Antifa as a domestic T, organization introduced by Margarine. That's HRES 26. The one we were discussing earlier was expressing the sense of the House of Representatives at the sermon given by Right Reverend Marianne Edgar Buddy at the National Prayer Service on January 21st at the cathedral was a display of political activism and condemning its distorted message. All she talked about was be kind. And then on True Social, this is what the person elected had to say. Hang on.
The so-called bishop who spoke at the National Prayer Service on Tuesday morning was a radical left hardline Trump hater. She brought her church into the world of politics in a very ungracious way. She was nasty in tone and not compelling or smart. She failed to mention the large number of illegal migrants that came into our country and unalive people. Many were deposited from jails and mental institutions. It's a giant crime wave that is taking place in the USA. Apart from her inappropriate statements, the service was a very boring and uninspiring one. She's not very good at her job. She and the church owe the public an apology. MAGA 2024 or 5 or whatever.
Petty much?
It's so much better when you read it like that. And that's the point, right? Like religion. And when you go to church on Sundays, it's not hearing, right? Trump just wants religion to be a tool. Trump has realized Trump is a complete transactional narcissist. He was like, oh, I can use religion to control people. Like it's a tool I can use, like Queen's mob boss can use to leverage people. Oh, I like that, right? I could use that to consolidate my power. But he's like, wait a minute, religion could be used against me? Like, he does not like that idea. And that's what he can't stand. Yeah, you don't always show up on Sunday in church and hear something you like. Oh, no, that was it. You don't always hear, like, right? Sometimes in church you hear something like, hey, I need to change. Trump's never had any experience with religion.
He's never had experience with much, to be honest, other than ripping people off. So we're gonna dive in a little bit and paint some historical context today, because for the people who don't know, and I know Felice knows this, the night of the Long Knives, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Although it is not an absolute, apple to apple comparison, but what happened on Friday night with Trump firing illegally solicitors general is an example, and then removing Secret Service protection from Mike Pompeo, from Anthony Fauci. So these are all people. So the Night of the Long Knives, the history there is that there were threats from within his own party, Schmittler's own party. So he identified those people and then used the SS and the Gestapo and others to go and get them, so to speak. You guys can fill in the blanks there. So again, it's not a direct comparison, but it's as close as you can get. And we'll talk about all that in just a minute. But thank you, everybody. Please give Felice, I know people are able to recharge their gifts. I think I've been reading about that. People are able to do that, but Felice is
You can?
I think so. Yes. I think you have to do it.
Wait, so does that mean TikTok's in the App Store?
I think you have to go to the web version. I don't know if you can do it on the app yet, but I think you can go to the web version and sign into your account through the web version and recharge that way. I think that's what I've been told, at least.
Oh, this is the first time I've heard that. Interesting. Wow.
Yeah. Somebody can confirm that. Yeah. Through the website. Yes. TikTok.com/recharge. So that's how we can do it.
Awesome.
What I want to do first, before we get into all that, because there's a lot to unpack there. Felice and I've talked about this before, and how the gaslighting that we get from the right these days is next level. And the reason that we have to talk about this is because I'm hoping that you guys can start to hear some things that they say. So two people in particular that we're going to focus on this morning, JD Vance and his gaslighting over the weekend in an interview, and also Charlie Kirk. So I've always wanted to be around a college campus when Charlie Kirk is there, because I would love, because if you've never seen him, he'll go out and he'll sit down with college students and people come up and challenge him. And his debates are so disingenuous. He thinks by talking fast or gaslighting people, he creates this perception that he wins these debates. And it's ridiculous. Every time I see it, I bang my head against the door because I'm like, let me at him. Let me at him. But it's crazy. So let's start with JD Vance first. So the question was, well, you can just listen to the interview. It's a little disturbing how in which he says these things, but you can listen to the gaslight.
used an electroshock weapon against a policeman who was dragged out of the defensive line by plunging it into the officer's neck. He was imprisoned, sentenced to 12 years, 7 months. He got a pardon. Ronald Maccabee hit a cop while wearing reinforced brass knuckle gloves, and he held one down on the ground as other rioters assailed the officer.
She's obviously talking about the pardons that were given to the J6 rioters, in case anybody wasn't here. Let me rephrase. The J6 insurrectionists who were attempting to overthrow democracy at the behest of their orange leader.
Officer for over 20 seconds, causing a concussion. If you stand with law enforcement, how can you call these people unjustly imprisoned?
Margaret, you're separating.
Here comes the gaslight. Listen.
There's an important issue here. There's what the people actually did on January the 6th, and we're not saying that everybody did everything perfectly. And then what did Merrick Garland's Department of Justice do in unjustly prosecuting well over 1,000 Americans in a way that was politically
Is
motivated?
violence like that against a police officer ever justified?
Violence against a police officer is not justified, but that doesn't mean that you should have Merrick Garland's weaponized Department of Justice expose you to incredibly unfair process.
I mean, how else would you describe that other than gaslighting? I don't know.
I mean, we're in a cycle of 24-hour gaslighting. That's why I'm starting a weekly support group in my Discord. It's the exposure to being gaslit, to having your reality denied. Like, I say this all the time. Now I see it as an advantage. I was raised by a malignant narcissist. So from my earliest memories, had my reality denied 24 hours a day, right? Like, truly. And so I feel like I'm uniquely positioned to understand what is happening now to everyone, and also to like be able to recognize it and to survive it, because I'm like, oh yeah, it's just my childhood. I grew up having my reality denied, like me observing what was going on and saying, hey, this is my observations and my truth. And then being like, no, that's not reality. So I 100%, yeah, this is 24 hours a day. Like just like there's a 24-hour news cycle, it's a 24-hour a day gaslighting cycle. Like what happened with Elon Musk and the Seagulls? What in the he was wishing everyone well from his heart. Is that really what was happening? Like, did you see the clip of Elise Stefanik at her confirmation hearing with Chris Murphy? Oh my God. And she is Jewish, and she considers herself a crusader for anti-Semitism.
I know. So here's a question for you, Felice. If you were wrapped up in a controversy about a particular gesture, right? Would you go and speak to a rally in Germany for the rise of the modern day version of the Yahtzee party called AfD? Would you do that?
No. And I love, no, I would not. But I mean, that's the thing. That's what's so offensive about this gaslighting. And it's not directed at people like us. Like, that's what we have to understand. Like, we are people who are going out of our way to educate ourselves, who understand what's going on in the political space, and are, and are generally educated about reality. Hey, Siberia. So it's not directed at us, because it's so offensive to me, because I'm like, how could anyone believe this? But if you're in this capitalism cycle where you're working 70 hours a week and you don't know what's going on, and you're just like, or you want to believe it, right? The interesting thing about the Sieg Heils is the far right fringe, right? They love that. They know exactly what that is. They're celebrating it loudly. They're like, see, finally we can come out. They're affirming us. Like, we don't have to hide anymore. And then you have like the moderate MAGA who want to believe or are trying to convince everyone this isn't happening. It's interesting to watch those two factions operate. Like, one is gaslighting and the other's like, yeah, it's exactly what it looks like.
Exactly. I mean, it's not like, I don't know about you, but it's not like I want to spend time talking about the connections to Yahtzee Germany, but we have to do it because, like I said earlier, mainstream media does not know how to cover Donald Trump. They do not. It takes people, and I'm not saying it's us, but maybe it is. We have to be able to draw these connections, the people that he brings into his orbit. And notice there's been no pushback whatsoever from Trump specifically as it relates to Elon. Not a statement, not even going to touch it, not even going to go there. I'm not. And
you know who's pushing back? Do you know who the Ice Maiden is? That's Trump's chief of staff, the new Mark Meadows. They call her the Ice Maiden.
Yeah.
Her name is Susie Wiles, one of the only professional people in Trump's. This is a woman, tried and true. Like,
she's tough.
Yeah. Oh yeah. She's no nonsense. I don't know if you guys heard, Elon Musk's offices are not going to be in the West Wing. She shoved him out. She shoved him across the street into the Eisenhower building, and he's no longer allowed to communicate with Trump but through her.
That's exactly right. That's
like, she's
exactly
like,
right.
oh, hell no. Like, because she's right. If she doesn't cut this off, it's going to cut the administration off at the knees. I don't know. Like, I'll say this. Susie Wiles, do not underestimate Susie Wiles. That woman has staying power. Like,
agreed.
She's no Mark Meadows. That woman is a force to be reckoned with. If anyone could survive Trump, I'm not saying it's possible to survive him forever, because when it becomes necessary, you end up under the wheels of the bus. But she's no Mark Meadows. She's something completely different.
You're right. I mean, I think in her case, it's a question of how long Trump will stand.
She's protecting him.
Well, it depends on how long he'll allow her to do that, right? You know what I mean?
I'm saying, I think maybe Trump wants her to. Do you know what I'm saying? Maybe. Because he does not want to come out against Elon Musk, right? And he has other ways of doing it, like Susie Wiles being like, get away from him. It's being reported, like Maggie Haberman, when she reports something about Trump, it probably came from him. Do you know what I'm saying?
That's a good point.
She has fed stuff from Donald Trump. And Maggie Haberman has said for weeks, Trump, it's getting to Carrie Lake status, but the difference is Elon Musk is filthy rich. Like, he wants him to go the away. But he's not going to say it himself. And just the same way, like, Trump plays people against each other. He's not going to come out and be like, F Elon Musk. He's like, surprise, here's Stargate. Well, here's Sam Altman, the only man on earth I can figure, your worst enemy, Elon Musk. I now have him standing next to me in the Oval Office and giving him a thumbs up, and I'm signing an executive order for him. That's Trump's way of saying, back off.
Exactly. But I mean, probably under the direction of Susie, because I don't think Trump is smart.
Yeah, because she's smart.
That.
Yeah,
exactly.
No, she's smart.
Everybody, thank you. Sorry, thank you again for joining us today. Please welcome Felice back. We were lamenting over this over the weekend about how we missed each other's company. So I'm so psyched that you're back and thank you for joining us again. Let's talk about some more gaslighting. I mentioned earlier about Charlie Kirk and his tours around campus. So part of that ridiculous House resolution introduced by MTG, so basically wanting to erase Antifa from our history books, the fact that there's been all this pushback, the pardons for the 1,600 people that were convicted, including those that beat up officers, and the people involved in that, especially on the right, they do not want that to be part of our history. They want it erased from our history. We know that, with Aileen Cannon stepping in, documents related to the case in Mar-a-Lago, they want that erased from our history. And it will be unless we continue to talk about it. So another example of Charlie Kirk going to college campuses. Here's another example of the gaslight that we were just talking about. So the question, they're talking about fight and the word fight like hell during Trump's speech that day. Hang on a second.
But he also said to fight like hell, you're going to lose your country.
Right, but I think we both agree. Time out. Kamala Harris's phrase right now is when we fight, we win. So fight is a open-ended term. Do we agree with that?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Kamala Harris loaded the DNC had a big thing that said when we fight, we win. So telling somebody to fight, we shouldn't, that's a little bit ticky-tack, right?
Sure, yeah. I would say they're different contextual
For sure, but just you can't emphasize that word.
That is gaslighting to the millionth degree. And the student was correct to point out, you got to look at it in a bit of context. We know what happened that day. Again, we know what happened. We know what we saw. We know what he said during his speech. We know why they were there. We know what their incentives were. We know the rhetoric that was leading up to it. And Kamala Harris saying, when we fight, we win is the same. Of course it's not. I need to get across the table from Charlie Kirk. It's something I need to do before I pass away. It's got to happen. So if anybody's out there has a connection, let me know, because I know
where he lives.
I'll do it. We'll sell tickets. We'll donate to Planned Parenthood or whatever we need to do. But I want to sit down with that guy, because this is the example, and I think he's good at what he does. There's no doubt about it. But it's just another example of the gaslight, literally trying to compare what Kamala Harris has talked about in the campaign trail to fight like hell and then go beat up police officers, hang Mike Pence, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Why don't we, and I'm just saying, here's one way I know we can run into him. The last 2 years, next year will be the third year of it. Let's plan now, next December. So almost a year. We have a year to plan it at is America Fest in Phoenix, run by Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA, where they all meet. Every famous person you ever wanted to run into in the MAGA circle is in Phoenix. They stay in downtown Phoenix. Steve Bannon, all of them are there. We should go there and run into all of them.
I'm down. Road trip.
I've never been inside America Fest, but 2 years ago, I was like outside in downtown Phoenix. I saw Matt Gaetz. I saw Steve Bannon. I saw Kerry. Like they're just walking in and out of the convention center.
That needs to happen. So that's on our list. I'm going to say that to my mod team, and I know that they will figure it out. So thank you guys in advance.
Like I think, there's a lot. I know you have a great structure of planning. Let me say really quick, guys, tapping is clapping. Let's get facts to 100K. I so appreciate being here. Keep tapping. That is the best way to show your support. Also, my pay-ups are in my bio. So are faxes. If you would like to support us that way, question, message, or comment or whatever, we will read aloud. I think that's about it. Oh, yes. And good morning to YouTube and Twitch as well.
Good morning, YouTube and Twitch. Wow, you're everywhere. You are everywhere.
I know. Well, I'm just preparing to leave TikTok. Like, I know that this is going the way of X and, Twitter to X. I already see it coming. So I will not be...
All right.
I'm just building an infrastructure where I don't have to stay here. Oh, wait. Can I play something really quick? I just want to play this... Just to speak to the gaslighting, I was looking for this clip. This is Nick Fuentes. This is what I'm talking about. Like, while we're being gaslit by people saying, oh, Elon Musk was just wishing us all well with those, two gestures from his heart. This is what the right fringe says. This is Nick Fuentes, one of the leaders of the white nationalist youth movement in America. This is him the next day.
And then straight up, that was a serious Roman. It wasn't even like a subtle, like a wave, like one of these, like a Laura Ingraham. Remember when Laura Ingraham did that?
She did.
That was a straight up Sig Heil, loving Hitler energy. that was like a straight up with intensity Roman salute.
That is the right fringe. While we're all being gaslit, told that this is what they are all saying. They love it.
You are the company you keep, right? At the end of the day.
Absolutely.
It still boggles my mind. I actually had a debate over the weekend with someone who had claimed that what Elon did was no big deal.
Who did you debate?
I didn't debate. It was a conversation through direct messages. Somebody who came up here last week, and hopefully that person will. He's a fanboy a bit, Felice, so he may join at some point this week to have an in-depth conversation. We'll see how it goes. We were having that conversation, and what I'm asking is, I'll ask this to anybody: do you really feel like you should be defending something that, even if you don't agree, defending something that is you can look at it. You don't need for us to prove it to you. You can look at the photographs. You can look at the actual video. You compare it to what's been done in the past by people. To sit there and try to defend it, maybe you could just say, yeah, that didn't look good. Something that simple. Something as simple as that, as opposed to trying to say that it wasn't what we all saw. Again, for those of you who don't know, he went via Zoom or whatever it was and spoke at this AfD convention, which is this alt-right party in Germany that the German citizens denounced because they understand its roots. So maybe just look at history, and we're going to get into this in a little bit. But got a couple people that have requested. We'll bring some folks up. For the most part, we don't really do much in the way of debates anymore, Felice, but you never know how it goes.
Yeah, I'm with that.
Yeah. I think we all are.
Don't want to. This is indebatable. I was going to say though, quickly, since Jen is loading, or I'm not sure what's happening here. Wait, what was I going to? It was going to be important. It was going to be good. It'll come to me. Sorry, it's my ADHD.
Okay. That's all right. We're all there. I got you. Everybody, please keep tapping. Let's get Felice over 3,000 likes and coins as quickly as possible, please. Philosophy, how are you today?
Hello, how are you today?
We're well. Thanks for being here. What's on your mind?
Thank you. Happy Monday. I spoke to you a couple of weeks ago. I called in and told you a little bit about my story.
Yeah.
I wanted to tell you that just yesterday I binge watched on Netflix on How to Become a Tyrant.
Oh.
I love that series. That's such a cool series.
That series speaks to what we are definitely living in right now. I want to express the importance of whoever's listening to please watch that. To understand how we got here with the felon, the distractor in chief, because that's what he is. When we're talking about Stalin and we're talking about Mustache Man and all of those things are in that series, and the way he utilized, when I think about the wife saying that he kept that book at his nightstand, it is so to point. Like he literally is following that playbook.
Yeah. And when I go through some of the things that I've compiled that the Mustache Man did during his rise to power, I'm just asking people to make up their own opinions. I'm just, when I read it to you, I know Felice knows this, that people have to stop saying that the left is trying to gaslight or being hyperbolic when it comes to these kinds of things, because the similarities are just, it's not a coincidence. It is by design. This is what they want.
Correct.
They want to rule with an iron thumb. They do not want opposition. They do not want gay people. They do not want black people. They do not want women. This is what this is. This is history. Again, does not repeat, but it rhymes.
Yes.
For sure.
And all we ever hear is, oh, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. And when I listened to the series, that was literally the words that some of the people were saying. It's not going to happen here. And though we've never seen it on our U.S. soil, it has been around the world. And that's what I think people just can't seem to fathom. Like our minds were never set to believe that this could happen in the United States. But as we continue to watch, and while they continue to erase history to act like it's not something that is tangible today, we are seeing it in real time, right? The way that he is creating his own militia, the way he's doing all of these things to fortify and make sure that his foundation is set to do the things that they have done in the past. We have to stand, resist, and do what we need to do for our families and our protection. But getting out the word and I had it out with my brother just recently. He just didn't get. And he's one of those brothers who he has 5 sisters and he wants to protect us. And I'm saying to him, but you think that this man, you degrade another black woman by saying things disparagingly against VP Harris. And every time you say it, you're saying it to me. I would never disrespect you. I said, every time you say something disrespectful about that black woman, you are disrespecting me. And I don't know how else to say it. So I'm going to leave your little savior man over there in the corner. I'm going to need for you to do the same thing for her. Do not disrespect her. And I will not say anything about your friend, your man, whatever you want to call him. So I had to say that for him to get and understand. I said, but you don't get that you're hurting me. You say as your lesbian sister that you love and want to protect, but you are doing things to hurt me.
That's part of it, right? I mean, I think the suffering is the point. And I think the part of what, we can talk about, his belief in government or whatever it might be. But I think at the end of the day, it's about the suffering, wanting to punish people, as many people as he can, while he's enriching himself during the presidency. Thank you for jumping in today, Philosophy. I appreciate you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Felice.
I followed you. It was a pleasure to meet you.
I love both of you so much. Thank you so much for everything y'all do every day.
Thank you. We love you too, friend. I appreciate you very much. See you later.
We're almost to 100K. Keep tapping the screen. You guys are doing an amazing job.
So a little bit more gaslighting. So as we know, if you live in a Republican state that voted for the twice impeached, 4-time indicted, sexually abusing fraudster felon, you can expect federal funds to help support your in light of a natural disaster. Not necessarily in a blue state. So we'll get into a little bit more gaslighting, and I also want to highlight a Democratic senator or representative from California who spoke to Trump the way that everybody should be speaking to him. So let's talk about the gaslight first. This is having to do again. Listen to the answers.
President, you talked about conditions being placed on aid to California, voter ID, and the like. Are there any conditions that you're going to put on aid to North Carolina?
We're going to do a lot for North Carolina. You know, they've been very slow. We're going to make up for lost time.
No conditions you're going to push for aid?
Well, in California, I have a condition. In California, we want them to have voter ID so the people have a voice, because right now the people don't have a voice because you don't know who's voting, and it's very corrupt. And we also want them to release the water. If they released the water, they wouldn't have had a problem. If they released the water when I told them to, because I told them to do it 7 years ago, if they would have done it, you wouldn't have had the problem that you had. You might not have even had a fire.
So the question was asked, are you going to put conditions on a state that voted for you? And the answer was a non-answer. Instead, you immediately pivot to California, right? So in response to that, we get this, hold on a second. We get this representative. His name is, I don't want to discredit him. Don, I'll find it as we're playing it. So this was part of the rally, the photo op that Trump, and by the way, Melania getting the lip kiss from Gavin. I think she was pretty happy that happened. If you could look at her face.
I love the comparison. Like, I saw someone, like, it's not, I think Midas Touch posted a short one, but there are like long, you know, like just time after time of her refusing, and not even lip kisses, but refusing to let Trump kiss her on the cheek. Even at the inauguration, she stopped him like several times for putting his lips on her face. And then she's like, Gavin.
Exactly. With a big hug.
Oh my God. Like, I just can't, like, the energy. It's true. Like, I mean, I'm kind of,
let's be real.
I was going to say that, like, yeah, I'm pansexual. I'm kind of over men at this stage of my life, unless you're, you know, not a piece of shit, which is very few men left. But like, yeah, that Gavin's energy, it's like, okay, fine, Gavin, you do you. Can you believe he was married to Kimberly Gargoyle?
I know. Ew. For folks who don't know that, yeah, Gavin Newsom and Kimberly Gargoyle, Don Jr.'s girlfriend at one point.
Don Jr.'s ex, who has been
exiled,
mailed to Greece.
Exactly.
So he could hang out with his new girl, Bettina.
Right.
And Kimberly won't drunkenly scream at them at Mar-a-Lago.
You know, I just thought about this. So this whole obsession he has with this faucet, I really think that because he refers to, you know, Washington and Oregon and Canada, I think he thinks that they are literally uphill from California, and that by opening the faucet, the water will flow downhill because it happens to be north.
I can explain. I mean, I have done such a deep dive. First of all, it's definitely not real, but like, he's conflating like several issues. What he's talking about truly when he says this faucet, because of course there's no faucet. But there is an issue he's speaking of, which in no way will water ever come to Southern California. Just to be clear, it will never come to Southern California. Southern California has more water than they've ever had. You could just look up weather or water level charts in any state, and you know that Southern California is water flush. They don't need water. But like, what he is talking about is there is a dispute between Northern California farmers and Central Valley farmers, which is still very far from Southern California.
Yep.
And just to be clear, water does flow from Northern California to the Central Valley for farmers. It's just that at certain times, right, they stop the water. I'm sure you've heard Trump screaming about this goddamn smelt, and you're like, why is he screaming about this damn fish? Because when the smelt is spawning or whatever, you know what I mean? There's some, you know, when they're reproducing, they shut the water flow off to the Central Valley farmers. That's what it is. But never will that water make it. If you understand where the Central Valley is, nowhere near Southern California, nowhere near LA County. Never will the water make it down there. Nobody knows what he is talking about. And then he started saying, did you hear? He then started saying like, oh, the water flows from Canada. And they're like, what the hell?
What are you talking about, dude? Seriously, like, what are you talking about? I honestly believe he thinks it flows downhill, like downhills. Like,
yeah, he thinks latitude is downhill.
Exactly.
Latitude is not necessarily, is different than elevation, but he doesn't understand the difference. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's very confused.
So it's part of that same sort of photo op where he went to California in his black MAGA hat with the gold trim. Democratic Congressman Brad Sherman asked this question. And I think this is great. This is how you need to confront Trump's bullshit.
And I know you've talked about policies of California that you're not a fan of. But I've been in Congress for 28 years. I really disagree with Louisiana on their abortion policy. I disagree with them on their campaign finance policy. I disagree with North Dakota on their gun policy. And I would never turn to somebody from Louisiana and say, you keep living on your cousin's couch, because we're not going to help you rebuild until Louisiana agrees with me on a woman's right to choose. So I'm hoping that we can get these funds and that we don't punish individuals for the policies of their state. You can disagree with them, and I think you've got some ideas. I look forward to us listening.
That's how you do it. I mean, that throws it right back into his face. Because last time I checked, you're the president.
Representative Sherman, that man was a force in that he shamed Trump over and over. And Trump, the whole audience was MAGA. Everyone in that press conference, except for, Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles, that Sherman guy, there was very few people that Trump didn't have placed there. Like the whole audience was MAGA. And that guy was just everything Trump said. He's like, hey, can I speak to that? I was like, they brought him to just fact check the shit out of Trump.
It's great because again, if you're the president of the United States, I don't remember any conditions being put on Tennessee during the Smoky Mountain fires, or Florida for hurricanes, or North Carolina or Western Virginia or other parts of the country that happened and did not vote for Joe Biden to not be able to receive no conditions put on their federal aid. And now you're talking about the dissolution or the dissolving of FEMA. That's one of the targets that's on their list. They don't want FEMA to exist anymore. A lot of these states are already dependent. They're already upside down. They're already running at a fiscal deficit. They would never be able to support what they get from the government.
Yeah, this is the reality. But also know, when you hear Trump starting to talk about dissolving FEMA, this is a chapter in Project 2025.
Big time.
100%. And so just all of the gaslighting about Trump doesn't know what Project 2025 is. Well, every single thing in it, that's all the executive orders just lined up. It's all Project 2025. And that's why when you heard, let's just step away from Project 2025 because that's a buzzword. But what you heard Tim Walz constantly talk about, I worked for the campaign in Arizona in a swing state, so I heard him personally speak like 10 times in person. Okay, it's probably closer to 5. And what he was always saying, and what you heard a lot of governors saying was like, hey, during COVID, it was the Hunger Games. If any state does not vote for Trump, you will never get a federal aid again, right?
New York, Michigan. Yeah.
Yeah. And really, this is all a plan of conservatives to control blue states or to turn them red, right? Cut off federal aid. Like, this is all a plan. And just know it is written out in Project 2025. But for Trump, the Queen's mob boss, he loves it because he's like, oh, okay, I get rid of this federal agency. I say it's wasteful, and then I control who gets aid, right? If someone didn't vote for me, I don't give aid. And I don't know if anyone listened to that California ridiculous press conference Trump had, but what is he asking them to do? And I want to be just super clear, which is a violation of the mother effing Constitution. Correct. Trump has violated the Constitution over and over with these executive orders, but what is he asking specifically? For voter ID laws in California, which, if you know anything about how voter ID laws work, you do have to provide proof of who you are. You just, in California, don't have to bring it to, right? They're using DMV records to verify who people are in every state now. Like Arizona is one. You do have to bring your ID in Arizona, but it's not as stringent as red states. But yeah, I mean, they're using MVD records to verify who people are anyways. And if you don't show like your license or something like that, and you're not verified through MVD records, you have to bring other things. But no, right? Why is Trump saying that? We know that through the Heritage Foundation, I'm giving you data from the Heritage Foundation. Since 2002, there have been less, or just over now, I think, last time I checked, 200 attempts, not just of a non-citizen to vote, but to even register to vote.
Correct.
200 attempts. That is no one, okay, since 2002. In 22 years, less than 200 people have either tried to register to vote or vote as non-citizens. This is a non-issue, but what do we know? Study after study shows, right? Data, impact study shows that voter ID laws stop who? Actual American citizens who are who? Black and brown.
Correct.
From voting. And he wants to turn California blue. That is the fastest way. And it is unconstitutional to withhold aid.
It's Republicans removing black and brown people from voter rolls. It's governments like Alabama denying the fact, realizing that their congressional maps were illegally drawn, which penalized black voters in that state. They lose to the Supreme Court. They tried to do it anyway. They did it again. They finally had to have a third party come in. This is a perfect example. It's more gaslighting. And then the water. The conditions are voter ID and turn the faucet. It's ridiculous. It's against the law. For those of you who live in California, there are Republican voters out there who are hardcore MAGA, especially in the Central Valley, in that area. This is what the president thinks of you. Doesn't give a shit. Doesn't care about your fire response. Doesn't care about an earthquake potentially. Doesn't give a shit. That's another example of the gaslight.
And I want to explain something, because someone in my YouTube chat, I think Ann, said, "Hey, I'm from New York, so I don't mind if we get rid of FEMA because that'll save New York money." I just want to explain places like New York and California, which you're right, you guys are supporting red welfare states 100%, but you still have to pay federal taxes. It's not that you're not going to pay the money. You guys will still pay the money to the federal government. It's just Trump is going to decide who gets it and how.
And they'll use any money that they can save to help support their tax cuts. That's going to be like $5.7 trillion. That's going to be stuck to the American voter again, because that's what you voted for.
Great question, Gina. Gina said, "What happened to states' rights, brother?"
States' rights, brother.
It's very clear that states' rights was only a thing. If it's only used to discriminate, right? States' rights, now that the conservatives have control of the federal government, there's no more states' rights, right? Like, it's fascinating to see. They only used that when they wanted segregation, when they wanted, to arm their slave patrols so they could use pew-pews to attack runaway slaves. That's when states' rights was a thing, right? Now that they have control of the federal government, they're like, big government, fill the swamp up.
States' rights, California. Maybe stop paying your federal income tax. Just don't pay it. States' rights, California.
That's what they're saying. I mean, that's what they're saying. And just to be clear, like, it's not that blue states haven't considered this, right? AGs in blue states, they have California specifically spent $50 million Trump proofing their state. Like, they have plans. If Trump keeps pushing this, they have plans to push back on him. We're talking about the fourth largest economy in the world who is supporting welfare states. Like, it's madness to say, hey, we paid the most into the federal government. We don't get any of it back in support of red states. And now you're saying we can't have any money back when we need it. That's delusional.
That's right. And retired Pyle pointed out, at least Trump pardoned all those Antifa and BLM rioters that stormed the Capitol.
Just that, signed an executive order on Friday, or wait, was it an executive order, a bill they're passing so they can tour the Capitol? So now they'll be allowed on federal grounds because they're barred from federal grounds. Boebert, I was reading, she tweeted she can't wait to give tours to the, pardoned J6ers.
Again, and they're just playing in our faces with that stuff. And that's exactly the point. They're trying to erase this from history, and we can't let them. I wanted to share this story because I don't think this is something that gets covered very much. But for those of you who don't know, do you know who Lorenzo Sewell is, Felice?
Yes.
Yeah, so Lorenzo Sewell is the pastor from Detroit who spoke, did the benediction at part of the
Sewell
inaugural.
coin. Yeah, he also rug pulled. He's also a crypto scammer.
That's exactly where I'm going. So he gets national attention from his, emotional benediction that he gave at the inaugural. And then the next day,
he's also the guy during the campaign. Remember when Trump spoke at a black church, but then nobody in the audience was black?
Yeah.
That was his church.
I know.
His building.
Right. So he goes out the next day and launches a meme coin. So I guess you sell your soul, and then you go out and you use that to go out and launch a meme coin. By the way, it crashed 93% after it launched. So again, I saw some of the conversations from the right saying, how can Trump be racist? He had a black man at his inaugural benediction. And I'm thinking, really? Really? Another example of the gaslight. All right. So behind me, guys, if you wouldn't mind, you can, obviously subscriptions are available on TikTok. We don't know what's going to happen. So you can subscribe a couple of ways. factsdon'tmatter.site. It will take you to the hub. Also, the link to the hub is in the link tree in my bio. And you can subscribe over there. It's $3. It's the cheapest price that we can offer. It gives you access to subscriber-only events that will be in our Discord. You can also get discounts on merch items. So thank you very, very much. Appreciate that. All right, let's go back to our topic. And I want to start to get into this a little bit. There's a few more things that I think we should cover off on, but I think it's necessary that, for those of you that are just joining, by the way, in case you did not know, Marjorie Taylor Greene has sponsored a bill because it's really, really important that we lower the price of a gallon of eggs and the price of gas, because that's what our elected officials are there to do. Instead, Marjorie is using her time to try to pass a resolution that would identify Antifa as a terrorist organization. And also the 119th Congress, because they are so busy taking care of the American people, they want to pass a resolution that says the sermon given by Right Reverend Marion Edgar Budde at the National Prayer Service on the 21st of January at the National Cathedral was a display of political activism and condemning its distorted message. They really have their priorities in order. So I just want you guys to know, because that's important. Just a couple of things first. I wanted to sort of just go back to Pete Hegseth. I know you spent a lot of time on this, Felice, but he was confirmed as the Secretary of Defense. I don't know if you talked about this, but I think it's very telling that Mitch McConnell voted no. I think that came out of nowhere, that he voted no. And then Joni Ernst sold her soul.
Not just Joni Ernst. I mean, Tom Tillis. Yeah. Well, I agree.
Yeah, because she advocated for violence against women in the military. She advocated for violence against women everywhere. She was a hardcore. She's been a bit of a thorn in the Republican side because she's pushed back on a lot of that rhetoric, and she voted to confirm this guy. So
she's a senator from Iowa. If you all don't, she's a senator from Iowa. Her claim to fame, right, was in the military and bipartisanly with Gillibrand, right? Kristen Gillibrand, or is it? Yeah, they passed a bill, right? Basically what it does is, because people and men are SA'd in the military too, so I don't want to discount them. But there's a huge problem with direct reporting, right? If you were SA'd and you have to report to your direct report, there would be huge backlash for having to do that. So that Joni Ernst, who says she was SA'd in the military, her whole claim to fame was like, I'm protecting women. I'm making a third party reporting system so people don't have to go to their direct report and face backlash. Trump, they all, MAGA, and I'll say this, I'm on X like 24 hours a day. This is like how I make my outlines, and I just have to keep an eye on what MAGA's up to. I mean, they started a harassment campaign. It was 24 hours a day, and they said, either you vote for us or we're going to primary you, which I don't think that's an excuse. But that's what happened, and she completely caved. I mean, this man, it was credibly accused of rape, not by, a Democratic woman who was asking for it, right? A Republican woman at a Republican conference, not just a Republican woman working for a Republican NGO at a Republican women's conference. Her husband was there waiting for her in the hotel room and her children. And he, we've all read the 24-page police report of what allegedly happened there.
I feel like.
Hold on. Again, it's just another example when you get the taste for power, you literally will sell your soul. Like I know you're bae, Nancy Mace, you're bae. She could put her on the same list when you come out with all this advocacy for these marginalized groups, which I think is in the Republican Party for anybody to stand in support of a marginalized group is rare. And then when you get it, especially Johnny Ernst, I mean, it is just for women out there who make the decision to join the service. I mean, I have tremendous respect for you because you know what you're walking into, and you have a Republican in a powerful position as a U.S. senator standing there saying, "I will defend your rights. I will expose this," and then literally vote for the person to be in charge who's credibly accused on numerous occasions. So just as a reminder, these are some of the things that he has said about women who serve. Moms in combat, okay? That is his famous quote. So Gillibrand to Hegseth, quote, you said in November 2024, knowing full well you might be nominated as SecDef, so tell me, this is the question. So tell me, do you still want moms in combat? Quote, I respect every female service member. More gaslighting. That's not what you said. You claimed standards were lowered to allow women into combat. Can you give me one example? He did not answer. Gillibrand to Hegseth again. Commanders do not have quotas for women in the infantry. That's a lie. And you are creating a false perception that women don't belong in the military. His response was no response. Hegseth has claimed that DEI results in quotas for women in the military. This is false. This is another moment. Gillibrand to Hegseth again. You also attacked LGBTQ service members. Did you know that under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, we lost over 1,000 mission critical personnel? Hegseth, I have never disparaged LGBTQ service members. Gillibrand, you said diversity inclusion in the military is social engineering, but you don't call banning LGBTQ people social engineering? Again, no response. Hegseth has criticized policies allowing gay people to serve openly in the U.S. military, calling it a Marxist agenda. Tammy Duckworth, another veteran. You so badly mismanaged a budget that forensic accountants had to be brought in, and now you want to manage the entire Pentagon? What's the largest budget you've ever managed? Hegseth, $18 million. Duckworth, the Pentagon budget is $825 billion, 51,560 times bigger than anything you've ever managed in the past. How can we trust you to manage it? Mark Kelly to Hegseth. You wrote that you struggled with, quote, heavy drinking. Since we're all about transparency, let's go through some of these incidences. Just say true or false. Hegseth, anonymous smears. Incidents Kelly referred to, Memorial Day 2014. Hegseth had to be carried out of an event drunk. CVA, Christmas party. He was so intoxicated, staff had to carry him to his hotel room. Fox News, colleagues accused him of drinking on the job. Several accusers are not anonymous. There are even financial settlements for staffers who accuse a colleague of SA at a strip club. I'm not disparaging his alcoholism. I think it is something that I hope he gets help with. But for that level of hypocrisy, for that level of just complete non-answers, everything became an anonymous smear. That is who MAGA now wants in charge of the U.S. military. That is crazy.
Yeah,
absolutely crazy.
I'm not surprised by Mitch McConnell. Like, I think, and actually, I have so many thoughts on this. I'm not surprised by what Mitch McConnell did, right? Because Mitch McConnell has long, I think, has an undercurrent of opposition to Donald Trump.
You got this for a second? I'll be right back.
Yeah, absolutely. I could talk about this for hours. Yeah, I think Mitch McConnell long has had just because Mitch McConnell understands the difference between publicly disparaging Trump. Like, Mitch McConnell is much smarter than Donald Trump, right? So he's smart enough to keep his mouth shut while also working against him. And what Mitch McConnell is doing is signaling like, hey, his opposition, and also starting an undercurrent of, hey, we're going to need to work against this guy. And it's interesting to see he put himself out there at this time early enough because I think what he's doing is signaling this is bad, but what's coming up this week is worse. Because what do we have coming up to this week? Get Tulsi, unfit Gabbard, and scary RF Mother K Jr. who doesn't believe in the polio vaccine, right? So while Pete Hegseth is going to make life miserable for a lot of people and is completely unqualified, I think Mitch McConnell is starting to say, hey, we need to think about having the guts to stand up because we need to oppose Tulsi Gabbard. And I think what's interesting is these rhino, or that as Republican Dave Zoli, as MAGA calls them, Lisa Murkowski is going to be one to watch. Susan McCollins is going to be one to watch. These are people in these fringe places far away, Republican senators. It's going to be very hard to unseat Lisa Murkowski with any amount of money. Alaska operates very off the grid, right? They have their own opinions. Literally. It's their own place. And Lisa Murkowski does what Lisa Murkowski wants to do. So she's signaling like she is someone we can count on for a vote. Who knew we could possibly count on Mitch McConnell? But I think that's a good sign for us. And same with Susan Collins. I didn't even expect her. Susan Collins, I like to call her the Amy Coney Barrett of the Senate. You know, she'll always ask like really good questions. And you're like, okay, she's opposition. And then when it comes down to it, you're like, what the hell? But she's the Amy Coney Barrett of the Senate. So even her, she's like, no. And I think that this is gearing up for them to oppose Tulsi Gabbard. That's what Mitch McConnell is saying. He's like, Pete Hegseth is a travesty and Tulsi Gabbard is a slap in all of our faces.
Agreed. Hey, Chris, how are you?
Good morning. How are you? I'm
doing all right, fine. Man. How's it going?
Just going just fine. It is no longer a Arctic tundra in Texas, and I'm very thankful for that.
Bro, I live in Vermont. I'm sorry. I got this tiny violin for you. I don't know what to say. I reached out to Chris. I don't know if we're going to do this today necessarily, but I just want you all to know that I reached out to Chris and asked him to kind of join us at some point this week to have an in-depth conversation into, because your background is in economics, and I messaged you after one of your lives because I saw you sort of talking about it a little bit. We're going to talk about the impacts of Trump's first tax policy, his proposed tax policy, the ins and the outs of tariffs. I know that maybe not today, but I just want to thank you in advance for doing that, my friend.
Yeah, so it's a very in-depth topic when it talks about taxes, right? So think about like an onion, right? And I can come back multiple days, but when it comes to the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act and just the concept of tax cuts in general, I mean, we all heard the word trickle-down economics, right? That rumor actually didn't start with Reagan. It started with a guy named Will Rogers in the 1930s. And it was actually used to actually mock the disaster that happened during the Great Depression, which actually part of that happened because of tariffs, right? So but Reagan, right? Now we're going to go back to the 1980s. So he did such a bad job with the economy that he started painting this rumor, right? That contrary to what the economic data actually says, that giving tax cuts to corporations actually results in a better economy. So here's why that's false, right? So some of our best economies ever is when the corporate tax rate has actually been higher, right? Now, why is this, guys? Well, we have this thing in the United States of America called tax breaks, right? And that's incentivizes companies to do what they're supposed to be doing, right? This is going to sound really strange, but companies should be reinvesting in their CapEx, paying their workers better salaries if they're doing a good job, and hiring specialized labor for, whatever type of job it is. We essentially got away from that with Reagan, and it came right back with George Bush, actually, and then it came right back to Donald Trump. So if I can describe the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in three layers,
if I could hold on for 1 second, like I know I want to plan this. I'd like to have you come back that we can dedicate to this.
Absolutely,
we have a lot of things. Again, I want this conversation to happen, but I want to dedicate a whole chunk of the show to that. And I've got a bunch of stuff that I got to prep in advance. But
no problem.
As we're talking about today, I know you've served your country, and thank you for your service, my guy. I appreciate that. The fact that Pete Hegseth was confirmed as SecDef.
So I don't have any respect for somebody that doesn't set the standards for the uniform services. And what I mean is that he used his position on Fox, quoting 2019 on Fox and Friends, where he was endorsing war criminals, people that pew-pewed at Afghani men and then committed what was called fratricide. I don't have any respect for somebody, right, that doesn't hold the standards of the military. It's going to be setting the standard for, millions of service members. And this does not set a good precedence, right? So if Pete Hegseth is going to be saying that that these war criminals are heroes, then I don't know what's about to happen, especially we're about to go to war potentially in Panama. Trump's about to drag us into a war with Syria via the proxy that we call Israel. Right. And this is just not good.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all sort of had our eyes peeled, and I'm glad that your experience, because people don't talk about it in depth enough on these particular topics. But I appreciate you wanting to do this. So let me know what day you can come back, and we'll have an entire conversation, because I want to get into, what people looked at tariffs in the past, and the right tells us that it was effective, and we could talk about tax cuts and Job Act. We could talk about the trillions of dollars it's going to tack on the deficit at the punishment of the middle class. So just let me know what day you want to do that, bro. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, no, thanks for touching base, and Felice, always good to see you.
Thank you, buddy. I'll talk to you soon.
See you.
Love you.
Love you.
Later.
That's going to be great. So we'll do that someday this week. I appreciate Chris because he's a smart dude, and I enjoy watching his lives. All right. I want to talk a little bit about sort of our topic today. Again, not necessarily a topic we want to discuss, but because the right won't accept the reality of the historical connections to what we see with Trump, the Trump administration, and Yahtzee Germany, we're going to do it for you. So if I could just give me a couple minutes here, I'm going to read through this. This is from the Right Wing Watch, and I've sort of compiled a lot of information that connects some of the things that it's really important that we listen closely, and we'll sort of. I know Felice will be listening intently as well, because there's so many similarities to what we see in Project 2025. Connected to the things that are doing here, the consolidation of power, messaging, the attacks on marginalized communities, the wanting to eliminate people who are different, that kind of stuff. So, all right. So it kind of starts prior to the rise of the Reich. In 1923, Schmittler incited an insurrection against the German government. He was tried, given a slap on the wrist, and became a convicted felon. Despite being treated charitably by the judge, Schmittler claimed the trial was political persecution and successfully portrayed himself as a victim of, quote, corporate social democrats. He cleverly positioned himself as the voice of the common man, railing against the elites, cultural degeneracy, and the establishment, who he all labeled Marxists. He claimed the education system was indoctrinating children to hate history, in particular German history, and promised return to glory, make Germany great again. To solidify his base, Schmittler masterfully scapegoated minorities for the nation's problems, exploiting societal divisions with an us versus them narrative. Many Germans took the bait, and Schmittler's Yahtzee party continued to gain traction. Schmittler appointed German oligarchs as his economic advisors. He proceeded to privatize government-run utilities, solidifying support for the economic elite. With the working class divided along cultural and ethnic lines, the Yahtzee shut down workers' unions and abolished strikes. Progressives and trade unionists were imprisoned and sent to sea camps. Corporate profits skyrocketed while working class Germans lived paycheck to paycheck. This is scary when you hear this, because this is exactly what is happening today. Schmittler, who became a billionaire while in office, knew he and his clan of oligarchs could get away with a scam if they constantly had a, quote, enemy within to blame, while the corporatocracy robbed the country blind. An easy target was one of the smallest minorities. Schmittler removed birthright citizenship rights of Jews and started rounding them up for mass deportations for being, quote, illegally in the country. The German press under Yahtzee rule highlighted instances of violence by Jews to convince the bases that they were the threat. Schmittler wasted no time dismantling democratic institutions. Loyalty wasn't just discouraged, it was demanded. Opponents were silenced. Media that dared question him were vilified as the enemy and Marxists. Schmittler's propaganda minister Goebbels bragged about how the Yazis were able to intimidate the media into giving them favorable coverage and didn't need to give direct orders. The regime and its followers collected all books they saw as promoting degeneracy or what would be considered woke today, and then burned them in large bonfires. They also burned books that promoted class consciousness. Berlin had a thriving LGBTQ community in the 20s and even had the first transgender clinic. The Yazis burned it to the ground. LGBTQ people were then sent to C camps. Yazis also saw manhood as under threat by the independent women who didn't rely on men. In 1934, Schmittler proclaimed a woman's world is her husband, her family, her children, her house. Laws that had protected women's rights were repealed, and new laws were introduced to restrict women to the home and their roles as wives and mothers. Reproductive rights were not allowed. Despite all of this, the German people didn't have a similar historical parallel to look upon as a warning. Most Germans never acted like the sky was falling. Most just went along with their lives as usual until many of their lives were snuffed out. By the time Schmittler's reign was forced to an end by the Allied powers, 11 million people were unalived in the Holocaust and 70 to 85 million people were unalived in World War II.
Yeah, it's eerie when you read it like that. I mean, I know, I have a history degree. I know all of this, but yeah, I mean, and that's what is so disturbing about the gaslighting and the misinformation campaign. That's the point. Lügenpresse, right? Like fake press. It's getting people to deny reality, right? You have to create a false reality inside of a vacuum in order to do this.
This is from a group called the Reich Watch. They've been studying this for a very long time. They've had documentaries done on the History Channel. I'll post it in our Discord. Again, we've been talking about this for a very long time, and nobody wants to always have these conversations, but it won't get covered unless we talk about it. These are the things that are happening. And think about the things that he said in there. I mean, again, I forgot about the prominence of the LGBTQ community in Germany in the 20s. It was the epicenter in Europe for rights for that community.
I was going to say Berlin. Yeah. Like the epicenter of the trans movement. Absolutely.
Exactly.
LGBTQIA, the gender fluid movement. Yeah. There's documentaries on it. Berlin was one of the coolest places in Germany. It was very Paris.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that you follow the line, right? Attempted an insurrection to overthrow the government, became a hero, standing up for patriotism, organized his voters based on lies, enemy from within, everybody else. It's the same language, Marxist, communist, the exact same language that the mustache man uses, what the orange guy uses. It's the same group that are targeted. It was Jews and LGBTQ in Germany. It's immigrants, brown-skinned people, and again, LGBTQ and brown-skinned people and black people in our country. Women's rights were disregarded. Women were told that their value is their husband and their home. Reproductive rights were not allowed unless their husband said they could. I mean, it's just this is the world that we live in now. People have to stop just gaslighting away from it. Again, I don't expect much to change from MAGA, but I hope there are people who chose not to participate in our democracy, the 86 or 7 million, whatever the number was, of registered voters that didn't show up and for some reason decided they couldn't vote for Kamala Harris because of Israel. I hope this is a reminder of what we're witnessing. Because
I was reading I was listening to someone do a statistical analysis recently on voting. And I will say of the 7 million or whatever people that didn't show up, turns out 3 million of them were purged from the voting rolls. Those numbers are just coming in now, like the statistical analysis on the voter suppression and how effective it was. And truly, if it wasn't for the voter rolls being purged by MAGA, in swing states, the election probably would have ended up differently.
I would agree with that. Hey, Drew, how are you?
Hey, good morning, Steve. Good morning, Felice.
How you doing, bro?
On that topic, one of his early brown shirt leaders was a man, and I'm sorry his name is escaping me right now. It's a Monday morning. was very openly homosexual and was very flamboyant, and it was very well known. And Little Mustache Man just continued to let him kind of lead the early brown shirt riots and all the intimidation efforts until it became politically inconvenient. I'm not real sure if he was one of the ones purged in the Night of Long Knives or not.
Roym, yeah,
I know
it was. Somebody just mentioned that. It was yes. Roym or Roym. I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce it, but that, yes, he was one of the people that were the inner circle in the Night of the Long Knives was one of the people that was purged. It wasn't just the opposition. It was people within his own party that he saw as a threat, which is what we see now. Rhino Republicans, right? People.
I have something to say on that when we're done here. Rabibi, I need to say something about that. Okay. People misunderstand the Night of the Long Knives and who was actually purged. Exactly. And I have this amazing clip of Margaret Atwood, schooling people on what that is.
Awesome. Go ahead, Drew.
Well, there is a great, if you get a chance to watch on Netflix, it's basically called Mustache Man and the, his real name and the Schmatzy Party. It's more about the rise, which I think is the actual lesson that people are missing. Everybody looks at obviously what happened during the HCOST, all that stuff was awful, but that doesn't happen unless there's a lead up and there's reasons and there's things that happened leading up to that.
Isolationism from the West, post-depression, just turning a blind eye to the development, violations of the Versailles Treaty. All these things made it possible.
But if you watch that and you just listen to what's happening, there's one, and I don't remember which episode it was, but there's one episode in particular where it just talks about how he starts taking power. I think it may be the third episode. It's a 4 or 5 episode series, but it's critical to listen because if you were to just close your eyes, not watch the visuals on the screen, and you just listen to what they're saying and what steps he took. And you described many of them in that passage you just read, which was fantastic. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
But if you listen to it, and like I said, if you just closed your eyes, you could, word for word, you can imagine it being the story of what's happening in our country leading up to Trump being elected the first time, second time. It's remarkable. And that's the point we're trying to make. We don't know exactly what's going to happen down the line, but history has shown us what can happen when we allow this behavior to continue.
And we've seen the rise of autocrats. This is not new. This has been, the globe is trending alt-right. And people just are not paying attention because the left, sadly, the left in America is a lot different than the left in the rest of the world. When we say we're progressives here, people are like, you guys are progressive? You don't even have health insurance. What the hell are you talking about? Miss me with your progressive bullshit. But by and large, the rise of alt-right and authoritarianism is happening. We've seen it happen in cycles. So we're kind of at that point again in human history where it's starting to rise again. And the response has always been violence, sadly. And I'm hoping that there's the cautionary tales when we have these conversations are reminding people that we've got history rhyming here. This is happening again. Right in front of us. And MAGA they get offended. How you can't compare him. You guys all use, it's why you lost the election, because you compared him to Schmittler. We compared him to Schmittler because we can compare him to Schmittler. That's why we do it. Nobody wants to, but that's sadly true.
I do a show on Tuesdays called The Broadcast, and if you don't know, her name's In Bed with Danielle. If you don't follow her, she's fabulous. Great. She's a doctor. Oh my God. She's a true intellectual genius. And anyways, it's called The Broadcast, and we talk about how conservative policy is damaging women. And what are the things we were going through, because she could be a historian as well as a doctor. But what we were discussing last week is the Iranian, that's disgusting. Iranian Revolution, right? And people don't understand. 3 years, right? If you don't understand the history of Persia, what we were speaking about with Berlin, it was a center of intellectual thought and progressive ideas, and intellectuals brought scrolls there. Persia was the center of progressive thought of the world for a long time, which is now Iran. If you don't know, that's why they call themselves Persians. But anyways, 3 years from the Iranian Revolution, women had no rights, right? It took 3 years for women to have zero rights left.
Yep. You're right. Persia was idolized in many regards, is in the way that they had their focus on human rights and equality.
Her name
in
is
society.
In Bed with Danielle. If you want to follow her, she In Bed with Danielle. Yeah. And our show, the broadcast is 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesdays. Everyone should meet her. She's amazing.
Everybody watch that show because it's great. Anything else on that, Drew?
No, just thank you both for bringing this to light. I mean, it's something that we have to keep saying over and over again. And I mean, sometimes we sound like broken records, but we have to say it because people are completely ignoring it. Correct. And we're seeing it unfold every day. We're all hoping for the best. We're preparing for the worst. And thank you guys for keeping us informed.
You got it. Thanks for being here, Drew. We appreciate you. Felice, you wanted to touch on the history of the night.
I just want to, like,
people don't know this, and I think it's really important.
The Night of the Long Knives, like, a lot of people think that it was just, I mean, it was a culling of opposition, but what it was a culling of opposition within Hitler's own party, right? It's a culling of true believers. Because what was Hitler claiming to be? It's very similar.
I think H-Man or Schmittler. I think. I'm not sure where we go now with that word. I don't even know.
Mustache Man. Yeah.
Mustache
sorry.
Man.
Did I say that? Did I say it? Sorry.
Yeah,
I didn't even, sorry.
I know. I try really hard.
I try not to say it, but I was just speaking. So what, like, truly, it's a culling of the true believers within Mustache Man's own party, right? And like, I love Margaret Atwood. She's the
incredible.
GOAT. She's my idol. So I just this is a short clip of her explaining the true value. And that's who are the true believers, right? I always say this. I hate when people are like, oh, China's communist. No, you can call yourself a communist party, but sure. China has gone through the same thing. If you were truly a communist, you've been purged by Xi Jinping. There's no Marxism in China anymore, right? There's an authoritarian enriching himself, right? And it's an oligarch. That's what happens. And that's what Hitler was. Mustache Man. He said, I'm a socialist, right? I'm othering these people. Once we get rid of the enemy within, we're all going to share the wealth. And there were true believers who thought he was serious.
Exactly.
And those people had to go, right? The real conservatives, those are the first people to go. The Mitch McConnells, the ones they're othering, the people that really believe in conservative values, those
Liz
people
Cheney,
have to
Adam
go.
Kinzinger, Mitt Romney, people like that.
And that's why it's interesting to watch all of these Republicans just go along, because many of these people who are in Congress are going to be purged first. Like these true believers that don't want to watch Trump do a crypto scam. He's already a billionaire right now just through his meme coin. Like just what Mustache Man did, Trump has done. That meme coin is a way for foreign governments to bribe him or other people to bribe him. Mm-hmm. I mean, truly, that's what Mustache Man did.
If you want the
Oopsies.
playbook of how these things go, how do totalitarianisms go? One of the first things that happens in them is a purge of the believers. Why is that? So what do we have with Hitler? We have Night of the Long Knives. Who got eliminated then? Other Nazis whom he saw as rivals. And why them? Because they were still true believers. They still believed in the socialism part of National Socialism, and he did not. So they get eliminated. Who did Stalin purge in the 1930s purges?
Amen.
Was the old Bolsheviks, because they were still believers, and he was not. So suppose these people get power. The first people to be purged will be the true believer Republicans. Just saying, So if I were them, I would be thinking quite hard.
If you don't know about the Bolshevik Revolution and why people call Russia socialist, right? The Bolsheviks were socialists. They were tired of the kings and queens, the aristocracy in Russia having all the wealth. And it was a socialist movement for a hot second, and then it wasn't, right? And that's what
I want to play our PSA real quick, just because we touched on some sensitive topics here. So I don't want to let TikTok know that we can't say one fascist, apparently, but we can say the other. But I just want to remind people that we're here trying to do our work here. So give me 1 second. Sorry, it's coming.
TikTok. It is our intention during these live broadcasts to only provide fact-based information to the absolute best of our ability. We strive to never spread misinformation or to platform those that do. Opinions of our guests or commenters are theirs and theirs alone and do not reflect those of the host. Hate speech is not allowed, and we are diligent about policing it. This platform is for educational purposes only. We now return you to our regularly scheduled pandemonium, already in progress.
Again, which is why we have these historical connections. So you continue. I just want to make sure I got that out there. Sorry, Felice.
Oh, yeah. So I was just speaking about the Bolsheviks. They were real socialists. The idea that the people should own the means of production, right? And Stalin was an autocrat that wanted to enrich himself. And they had to go. Anyone with true ideals of socialism, of Marxism, have to go. That's who went first with Mustache Man. Anybody who wanted to share in the wealth. He was going to enrich himself and become the richest man in the world. Does anyone seem similar?
Exactly. And he acquired wealth during that time because he aligned himself with oligarchs, put oligarchs in his cabinet, put oligarchs as his advisors. I mean, this is, it seems so obvious to you and I because we've studied this stuff. I mean, not everybody. I mean, we spend a lot of time, we're policy wonks, we're politics wonks, we're history wonks, but I'm proud of that because we can see it happening. I wish more people would pay attention to these kinds of things. And again, I don't expect to change many hardcore MAGA's minds because, listen, they are Putin sympathizers. They're grape apologists. They're Yahtzee sympathizers now, apparently. I'm hoping that this activates people who chose not to participate in democracy because an example of that for those protest voters out there, in case you did not know, Trump wants Jordan and Egypt to accept more Palestinian refugees. So it's okay for other countries to take displaced people, but it's not okay for the United States. And we know what the plan is as Trump wants to continue to support Israel and basically take out Palestine. Let's be real.
Well, yeah. And I just to speak to that, because that is not Trump's idea, right? That is a far right, extreme fringe far right party idea from Israel, right? Which is the resettling, right? Not unlike the Nakba of the 40s, right?
Exactly.
To actually either exterminate or resettle the Palestinians. That is a the opposition to that. The entire Arab world is opposed to that. And to resettle. I mean, that's what Mustache Man wanted to do essentially with the Jewish people. So for that idea to come out, it's the hypocrisy of it, right? I mean, exactly. That's where Trump is getting that. And also when you hear him say, oh, there's beautiful coastline in Palestine, right? This his idea of enriching himself. He wants to develop it like a commercial real estate project. He wants to either exterminate or relocate, rehome these people and then develop it. Yeah. Ideology.
Trump Tower Gaza. That's his plan. Jess, good morning.
Good morning.
And by the way, and this is with a massive compliment, Felice, you're a misbehaved woman. So I don't know if you know, but Jess is part of a new podcast that just launched yesterday, Misbehaving Women. And I think you would be an incredible guest on that show.
So thanks. That's why I was coming.
I know, Left Jess. I love her.
We all do.
So we would love to have you as a guest on our show. I will talk to you after. Yesterday was fucking phenomenal.
Text me. You have my phone number.
I do. I do.
Yeah, don't message me on Discord. I'm so bad at looking at my Discord.
I'll never answer that.
We all are.
Yeah, yesterday was phenomenal. I just want to thank you for all the support that you've given us, Steve. I love you so much. You have no idea.
My pleasure.
This guys, why the fuck are we here? And this is like, and your background when I saw it, YouTube is running, by the way, guys. Sorry, I'm running late for life in general. I feel like the world in its current state has just got me really, really down. Even though there are such good things happening, I just can't believe. And it's so crazy because just a few months ago, I literally was at the Holocaust Museum, and like looking at like just thinking about the fact that I was just there and I just got to experience that. And then this is the fucking state we're in. Like history. I don't know why people don't think that we're being compliant in this. Like the people who are literally just saying, yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, like history repeats itself. We were also compliant in World War II when we turned away several boats that came here for refuge. Like if you think that we are not compliant, like this is our history of being compliant with bullshit that happens in and around us on a regular basis. Yeah. And I am just tired of living in a constant state of like what is going to happen to me and my family because people in this country don't want to fucking stand up for what's right.
That's when autocracy and dictatorships rise. It's oftentimes because of apathy within the society. Yep. And I think that's what we're seeing now. So like people can identify causes. I won't speak for Felice, but my mission at this point is to remind people who did not participate in our democracy, entitled leftists, people who feel like there are things that exist from a moral and social cause. I get it. The G side around what happened during the Israel peacetime war. I get it. Those are all important human rights elements. But because you did not participate in democracy, the communities and marginalized groups that you claim to support, and I will say that you claim to support in our country are now either being eliminated, silenced, etc. So you can't have it both ways. You can't say having the bumper sticker on your car is not enough. Going to a rally is not enough. If you chose not to vote because of something and you are just as responsible. We knew what MAGA was going to do. We totally knew what they were going to do. We know that votes were suppressed, but so many people stayed home and didn't vote. And this is what you got. This is what you got.
Well, and when you think about it, like what I implore people to do is when you are literally talking to these people, just pull out a fucking video. Go search a video on TikTok on somebody who is of Mexican descent or of Hispanic descent and the videos of how afraid they are and show them that and see what their reaction is. If they have no empathy in their fucking eyes, then maybe they shouldn't be a part of your fucking life. Because how can you sit around and watch what's happening in real fucking time and have zero empathy? It just doesn't make any sense. It never made sense to me in World War II either, but like, it just doesn't make sense to me in real time that this is happening. So like, I'm going to start showing people, like, I swear, I'm not even kidding you. People are going to be on Facebook and they're going to be talking shit, and I'm just going to post a video of somebody being like afraid of being deported and be like, are you okay with that? How do you feel about this?
Yeah, I've got some interesting stuff. I was going to read about that in a second. While you're here, Jess, could you do a mod announcement? Would you mind?
Yes, I absolutely can. Guys, there is 1,400 people in here. 14. See?
You got the math right.
I can do math, guys.
Good work.
Today is good math day. If you guys continue to fucking tap the screen, there's 227,000 likes. You guys are being amazing. If you guys can hit the heart me. If you guys cannot refresh your gifts on here, all you have to do is go onto a web browser and just type in www.tiktok.com/recharge. And you should be able to recharge from there. It's also 25% cheaper, so do that shit. Support the panelists. I don't know why Felice is sitting at 1.4. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Facts Hub. If you guys see now, since you cannot subscribe on our channel here, the Facts Hub in Steve's bio is the best way to do that. The subscription is only $3 a month. You get access to subscription benefits I'm just making words up. Subscription benefits. We're going to be doing a subscriber only thing soon. We do them all the time. So if you guys would love to join that, that would be fucking amazing. That's the best way to support. And also Cash App and Venmo are in the bio. I know Felice has hers in her link tree as well, or her bio as well. Please support the channel that way, because TikTok takes lots and lots of money out of it. And fuck them.
We love you, my friend. Thank you for being here and participating with us. And again,
Yes.
please subscribe to the Misbehaving Women podcast. The link is in Jess's channel, and everybody shout hearts in the chat for Jess and all mods everywhere for keeping us sane and keeping our making us look good. Which in Felice's case is easy, but in my case that's a lot of freaking work. And I appreciate it.
You look great today, Steve. Shut up. You're both beautiful.
Thank
people.
you, friend.
Hey,
wee. Okay, gotcha. You weed out of here. All right. So I also want to take this moment just because I was reading about this as well. Obviously, the world is upside down, and I found this this is from the little justice leaders. This is how perhaps you can, if you're a teacher, maybe some suggestions to talk to your students, and if you're a parent of elementary school age children in particular, this might be something you want to share with them. It's basically just supporting students after the inauguration. Okay. Set the tone for safety. Remind students that your classroom is a space where all voices are respected and everyone is valued. Acknowledge a range of feelings. Normalize a range of emotions, whether it be fear, excitement, confusion, devastation, etc. By naming them and validating that it's okay to feel differently from others. Remind students that they are excited that not everyone feels that way. And we respect all feelings in our classrooms. Begin with an optional emotional check-in day. How are you feeling today? Provide nonverbal options like thumbs up, thumbs down, neutral, or journaling for privacy. Remind students that feelings are valid, whatever they are. Reinforce anti-bullying policies. Reiterate that discriminatory and or hateful language will not be tolerated in our classrooms, and we respect all identities. It's okay to redirect discussions by setting boundaries. Those conversations may veer into unsafe and or overly polarized territory. And then watch for signs of distress. Pay attention to students who may need additional support. This might be especially true for LGBTQ plus members or immigrant students who may be feeling a lot of fear and uncertainty related to policies affecting them or their families. Provide additional time and space to process emotions if needed, or connect them with counselors and or trusted adults. I mean, most of those things go without saying, but like we need to be teaching kindness and empathy, showing people examples of kindness and empathy, because we've lost a lot of that in our society. And when people are cheering for suffering of others, when people are celebrating marginalized communities being erased, when people are celebrating when people have lost everything just because they want a better life, stuff like that. Thoughts on that, Felice?
Oh no, yeah. And I was just thinking about the poem that who his name was Martin Niemöller, Mahler. The guy, he was a German Lutheran pastor. The first they came, and it just, we could like insert different things, but he said first they came for the socialists and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists. Imagine that, you're in a union, right? Yeah. And I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me and there was no one left to speak for me. That is exactly what we're seeing. The fact that Trump eliminated birthright citizenship, and I love people being like, oh, it doesn't matter, it's just an executive order. No, he absolutely is trying to eliminate birthright citizenship and will, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, he will try his best. And what will stop him? The Supreme Court?
Nope.
Will Republicans change the law for him? I mean, he has every branch of government, and nobody is shocked. Hey, that doesn't affect me. I have bigger problems. Or can I benefit from that? Yeah, like the complete lack of empathy in our society. But that's what it is. I mean,
I'm glad you mentioned
that poem. Always comes to mind.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because there's a modernized version of it. It said first they came for the Mexicans and I did not speak out because I wasn't Mexican. Then they came for the GAYs and I did not speak out because I was not GAY. Then they came for the Jews again. I did not speak out because I was not Jewish. Then they came for the black people. I did not speak out because I wasn't black. Then they came for the Muslims and I did not speak out because I wasn't Muslim. Then they came for me and there was no one left to speak for me. So yeah. I mean, like we've mentioned this before, you guys, about how it's about the suffering, because this is the issue that we have with folks that are hardcore MAGA on the right. When you want to repeal elements of the Inflation Reduction Act that specifically benefited seniors by capping the cost of certain pharmaceuticals, insulin and others, and people are celebrating that. People are going to lose their lives. Wanting to cut funding for cancer research, for childhood cancer research, that one is personal for me. Personal. My daughter is alive today because of money that funded cancer research to help identify why her tumor recurred. My daughter would be very likely she was given a 50-50 chance to live anyway. But that is personal. And people are celebrating this shit. So teaching children empathy at an early age, respecting differences, sure. Children are not born hateful. Children are not, as much as the right would like to believe, children are not born Marxists or communists. They're born with an empathetic heart. And it's up to us to nurture it. And yet the right wants people to suffer. And again, historical context is one thing. But when we see it happening again, and those people, just like Felice read the poem and the updated version, if it doesn't affect you, then you don't speak up until it affects you. Then it's too late. Everybody keep tapping and sharing, please.
Yeah, absolutely. And understand when we talk about Trump and the blackout, I'm looking at one of the things I'll talk about today on the People's Receipts later is all of these emails I'm seeing on X for people who were supposed to start cancer research trials and were sent an email, didn't even get a call that their cancer research trial is not happening anymore because Trump has paused all HHS communications and travel. So cancer research trials, if you're not aware, are no longer happening as of today. And all of that, why is Trump trying to cut off communication from the HHS and trying to take us out of the World Health Organization? Why would he be doing those, and the CDC? Mm-hmm. All of these things are linked, right? As we take away women's rights, when we look at the maternal health desert in the South, what we know is maternal mortality is skyrocketing. Who is tracking those things? Oopsies. Who's tracking those things? Who's consolidating that data? The CDC, the World Health Organization.
Correct.
The blackout of the National Institute of Health. Correct. Exactly. That witch, Sarah, right on. And so it's that data, right? It's the blackout of data. Instead of saying we're going to use this data and realize that women need to be able to make decisions about their health care and doctors shouldn't have their hands tied, what their answer is let's hide the data.
Exactly.
Let's deny science. That is fascism 101.
101. Doughboy, thanks for waiting. What's on your mind?
Hey, yeah, I appreciate you having me up. I'll be super, super quick. I just want to add a couple of things to supplement your analysis there, which was great, very much on point. A couple things you can look at: party affiliation. That is a very good indicator to kind of measure the effectiveness of some of the propaganda campaigns and measure that and compare it against, events taking place. But one number I'll point out is there was 1,347 jurists at the end of 1932. A year later, membership had reached 80,000. So those are your judges. That's a big prong to consider if you want to. And again, history doesn't repeat, but hey, we want to understand these things to prepare ourselves for the now. I'll be real quick with this too. I have a book here highlighting. Everybody should write this down or ask Google. It's called Gleichschaltung. It's the process in which they move to a state by that party name. There was the approach in which they take. It's very similar to what the current administration is doing, and I don't want to take up too much time with it, but it's all right there. It's almost verbatim. The only thing that differs is basically your paramilitary group, the monopoly on violence, right? But if you look at Trump's executive orders he issued in his first term, they're the 3%ers, the Boogaloo Boys, all those guys. Anyway,
right.
So it's all too coincidental. Lastly, reason I requested originally is I wanted to speak to the vote with Hegseth, but not just that, but in general, how are Democrats going to respond? Are they just going to wait back or sit back and wait for an opportunity to present itself? I feel like we should have had even House members in the Democratic caucus, responding by making, for the lack of a better word, threats that, hey, you know what? I'm going to grind this government to a halt if you put a traitor ahead of this branch. If you got somebody who denies science in the Health and Human Services Department. I'm really discouraged by the lack of democratic movement, but hey, maybe I'm being too zealous here. I just wanted to throw that out there and get your opinions if you think they're doing enough or not. And then you can drop me. Thank you again for bringing me up, dude.
Sure thing.
Love your brain, Doughboy. First
all
of
over
all,
the place
you're
Totally
quite
agree.
intelligent for one intellectual to another. Love your brain.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Go ahead, Felice. Do you want to respond to anything that he said there?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, it's the same way we talk about, like, stop gaslighting us and saying what I know to be, all I see are patterns in the world. There's a very clear pattern going on that I can see. And I don't think we can yell loud enough. And I do think I'm very disheartened by, I would say, moderate Democrats and moderate Republicans who very clearly don't agree with this stuff, but don't want to be, ousted from their districts. But then again, like, here's the other side of it. And I'm just going to play devil's advocate because I don't know what the right answer is. And I think about this stuff. If you brought it to one of those moderate Democrats and asked them, why aren't you screaming louder? They would say, like, I'm in a swing district that I'm holding on to by a thread. If I get too loud, that this district will be taken over by a crazed MAGA person. What's the right answer here? You know what because I've heard some of them say it.
Yeah.
So I think some people are walking a tightrope. And then, but I agree with you. I think that I will say this, the positive side is I've seen from the Senate Democrats, I did not know the Senate Democrats had personality in them and could fight. And what I'm seeing, like, personally, as someone who's on X all the time, like, gathering data and information for my show, is that the Senate Democrats have mobilized, especially the younger ones, but even like Sheldon Whitehouse. Like, I mean, these people, they have become influencers. Like, I love Chris Murphy is putting out like 10 videos a day. So is Cory Booker. They have podcasts now. Like, what they were not doing in the 118th Congress, I have seen them mobilize and recognize this is the way we have to do it. This is how we reach people. We have to play this game, this Sodia game. And they're doing it well. Like, Chris Murphy, I didn't even know he had a personality. And now I'm like, oh, I guess you could be president. So yeah, I think they're recognizing they have to change and speak out in a different way.
I agree. When you talk about Doughboy, when you brought up, I mean, we can certainly describe moderate Democrats in many cases as feckless. And I think that is a fair description. But as from a political science perspective, the example that Felice just gave about these swing districts, it's really, really, it's real, but the alternative is what? So like if you speak up, you're going to get primaried. If you don't speak up, you're not addressing the needs of the people who put you in office to begin with. So they are literally stuck between the proverbial rock and a hard place, but you're there to serve. If you don't want to, the House Democrats should never again, ever throw any assistance to the Republicans. None at all. They have a 1-seat majority. If they can't figure it out, then they grind their own gears to a halt. But to your point, Felice, when you see people like
do not obey in advance.
Exactly.
Ever.
Right
dig your heels in. Like, that's the lesson I have of being raised by a narcissist. You have to dig your heels in. I mean, you're going to lose a lot of battles, but dig your heels.
Exactly.
You never make it easy.
Exactly. Exactly. If you're grinding then let them do whatever they're going to do because they're going to do it anyway.
Shouldn't they have done that though?
Make them drag your dead body weight.
Yeah.
Go limp.
I mean, everybody, hashtag be Jasmine Crockett. Let's put it right there. But Doughboy, thanks for jumping in today, bro.
Yeah, real quick, just to point out, look at what's his name, Tuberville did. One senator, doesn't even have to be the party. But see, that's the thing. He's in a very big stronghold. He doesn't have to worry about being necessarily primary.
Correct.
or losing in the general. They could get a far left state, right? With secure position for re-election. Have that person go out on a limb, grind that fucking government to a halt. They've already acquiesced and capitulated and shown their cards, in my opinion. I don't know. I don't want to bring everybody down.
The problem with that,
you're talking about a Republican supermajority.
Exactly.
They don't need the opposition. And we're in that position now in the 119th Congress, right? We are in a Republican supermajority. They don't need us, except in the House. We are close. And that's why I say we have to watch for the Lisa Murkowskis, the Susan Collins, the Mitch McConnells, the people that are putting their hands slightly up and saying, I dissent against this.
Exactly.
And the big one in the House to watch for is Mike Turner. This is one of the ones that will be purged at the night of the long knives, right? This is a true believer, conservative Republican who was the head of the Foreign Intelligence Committee. This man is intelligent. This man is focused. And actually, I do respect him. He's not a grifter.
Yeah,
and Trump threw him out, threw him off the head. He's no longer the head. He ousted him because Trump wants to use the Foreign Intelligence Committee and Tulsi Gabbard to go after what? The threat from within, the deep state. There's a clip of Mike Turner saying this yesterday on Sunday morning political shows that Trump told him this. And so it's the Mike Turners, right? When there's only a 2-seat majority that we might be able to, when it matters the most, right? We're going to lose a lot of votes, but when it matters the most, we might be able to flip a couple.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on Mike Turner. I mean, the fact that he got removed from the Intelligence Committee is a big deal as the chairman. I mean, he also voted in support of the impeachment, so he's got a history of being a thorn in the side of MAGA. But he also
he's for Ukraine funding,
right?
Yeah,
but he tried to squirrelly defend the January 6 rioters being pardoned. So he's still got an element of things in there that are hypocritical. But I think, like to your point, when there's a really, really important vote, he is a name to keep an eye on, without question.
Listen, and I'll say this though, like what Mike Turner is saying to just publicly, like. He's playing the game. Do you know what I'm saying? This is a very intelligent person. He's got to say certain things and then lie and wait. Who was the one that left that Boebert's in his Ken Buck, right? Ken Buck was in the Freedom Caucus. Like he was the most right MAGA fringe. And then when it came time, he's like, hell no. Like I have a brain and you are violating the Constitution. And he's gone now. He's like, I'm not staying here for this shit show. Now Lauren Boebert sits in his district, but like Mike Turner is one of those. Like when it comes up to like the violation of the Constitution, there are a few left, but that's the point. A lot of them have been purged.
I feel like it's funny because, and I'll get to Benny in just a second. I feel like, because like you said earlier, again, we have to laugh so we don't cry. Lauren Boebert wanting to give tours of the Capitol to the insurrection rioters. I feel like she, even a building that she's worked in for like 4 years, I think she would walk in and be like, okay, this is the big room where there's pictures. And this floor was made of Arkansas ivory that they got from Walmart. They bought it on discount. This is where the people who work in the other building work. Anyway, Benny.
But she knows. She'll be like, this is where I suspect someday a trans person might go in the bathroom.
Right.
Like, what kind of tour are we going to get from Lauren Boebert?
Right, exactly. It's like Benny, thank you for being here, our Canadian neighbor.
Friendly neighbor from up north. How's it going, eh?
It's going, Benny. It's going. Again, look forward to being the 51st state, Benny.
Absolutely the fuck not. The gloves are off, bud. The gloves are off. Yeah, so we're trying to approach today with a bit more of a level head. Trying to keep our chins up. We've all been feeling it. We've all been feeling pretty anxious, pretty upset, pretty angry. Up north here. I mean, we see you guys. We hear you guys. We're there with you. But at the same time, forgive us if we've been a little emotionally
Save yourselves
at the time.
Save yourselves.
We got, we got so much going on within our own borders too. I mean, we got a federal election that'll be coming up. We got
crazy Polyev. You got Trump of the North that you have to try to fend off.
Yep. It's been It's been fun. Kind of anxious to see what's going to happen.
Can I run something by you and to get your opinion? Because I actually think, like, in order to save ourselves, right, Canada must, like, back away from us, right? And so do other countries. It's like Trump alienating Canada, alienating Mexico, alienating all these other countries, which, quite honestly, who's winning in all this? Like, Trump is not smart. Right. China is winning because I was just listening to the Prime Minister of British Columbia give a speech yesterday. I mean, furious and just saying, like, we're not,
Sorry, did you say Prime? Do you mean Premier?
Premier, sorry.
Yeah.
Did I say Premier? Sorry, my brain, it's,
That's okay.
It is ADHD brain. The Premier of British Columbia is saying we have to diversify our trading partners. I mean, that's the West Coast of China saying, F you, the West Coast of Canada saying, F you, United States, like, we're going to China. And so as countries like Canada diversify their trading portfolio and no longer rely on the US, it's going to hurt us. But in the end, the only way is to teach Trump a lesson economically.
Well,
we all have to suffer for Trump to stop.
It's like you were saying, and like when you deal with a narcissist, you got to dig your heels in, and that's what we are fully prepared to do. I would like to say that two things that Canada knows really well: we're masters of sarcasm, and we are masters of passive aggression. So we'll dig our heels and we'll be like, we're not going to do it. I'm going to hate this, but yeah. I wanted to speak a little bit on it because we've touched upon voter apathy and the neutrality of especially of the left on the whole, and I wanted to speak on that a little bit.
Sure.
What brought to mind was a very specific quote, and if anybody if anybody recognizes it, feel free to chime in. But neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. That was the late Professor Elie Wiesel.
That applies in so many areas as we talk about, men who claim to be accomplices in the fight to protect women or help defend women's rights. When you don't call out toxic masculine behavior, you're silent, therefore you're complicit. You stay neutral. You don't want to get involved. I think that applies in so many areas of our life. So many areas.
It does. 100%. 100%.
Well, thanks, Benny. Like I said before, I told you this, and I have to say this covertly, the boundary waters that I fish in regularly, I do tend to crisscross, so maybe I'll run into you in the woods somewhere.
We like to call it we're going to rename it from Lake Superior to Canada's Superior Lake. It's a work in progress, but maybe we'll be able to pass that.
That's a good idea.
Well, while my platform is small, there are so many of us, up north here who do have platforms that are going to do our best to try to elevate platforms such as yours, share, like whatever we can do, to help our friends and family down south, because we love you guys. We think that what's going on is a little fucking crazy, to be honest.
Yeah, it is.
But we love you, but we might have to distance ourselves just a little bit. It's not forever, but just temporarily.
I get it. It's like the kid you used to hang out with that became this weird person that you still love in your heart, but you're like, I don't know if I want to go to a party with him.
Is it the MP like Charlie Angus who said living above the U.S. is like living like in an apartment above a meth lab or something?
Charlie Angus, and I was like, that guy
Charlie Angus, and I was like, man, that is the best analogy I've ever heard.
We leave our trash out. The raccoons.
We pity you, but like honestly, you're creating a problem for the entire apartment building.
We have all of our cars up on cinder blocks. In various stages of disrepair.
Believe me, we got some folks who are Tangerine sympathizers. It was reported, I think it was either yesterday or Saturday. It was it was somewhere in Alberta, a group of yahoos with a bunch of signs, deport the immigrants, and the news said it was quote unquote anti-immigration protest. No, these guys were throwing full Yahtzees. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Saying it all, my heart goes out to you. Like, all I could say to that was, funny how they're wearing masks. Those jaws need a well-connected fist, if you catch my drift.
Thank you, Benny. Be safe, buddy. Appreciate you very much.
Hey, take her easy, guys. Stay hydrated. Stay safe. Much
I
love.
followed you, Benny. Nice to meet
See you, Benny. Be good,
Wonderful.
buddy.
Take care.
Take care. Benny's great. Benny's our safe space in Canada. My team just shared this with me. This is great. This is California saying F this bullshit. A new bid to place a measure on the ballot that would ask California voters to approve the state's secession from the U.S. has been cleared for signature gathering. Secretary of State Shirley Weber announced Thursday that a measure introduced by Marcus Evans of Fresno must receive more than 500,000 signatures by late July. According to the text of the measure, the state would be required to create a 20-member state commission to study California's viability as an independent country in 2027 and to publish a report the following year. Members of the commission, who would be picked by random by the Secretary of State, would have to meet certain requirements such as being nominated by 100 registered voters and must have California residency for at least 5 years. The measure would also place the following question on the November 2028 ballot. Should California leave the U.S. and become a free and independent country? Wow. Approval would require at least 50% voter participation and 55% voting yes. Interesting. What is it? The fourth largest economy in the world.
Yeah, they don't need us.
They don't
have all
need us.
The coastline. They have all the coastline. Then they could tariff the shit out of us. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what's the 40% of fruits and vegetables or something to that effect? Like, it's crazy.
They have our food supply.
Wow. That's nuts. Well, Texas has talked about doing it for years. So, okay. We can rename the whole country. Em, good morning.
States' rights.
States' rights, brother. States' rights. Good morning, Em. How are you today? Em, are you there? Hello? Em? That might have been an accident. Accidents will happen. The immortal words of Elvis Costello. Everybody, please keep tapping. Why is Felice only at 1.5K? Please go to her link tree that's in her bio. Her pay apps are there. Please hook her up. Appreciate y'all. A little Linka, how are you this morning? Linka, are you there? If we fall into that trap again of people just accidentally tapping, probably.
Glenn, thank you for the $10. He said, thanks for fighting the good fight. Hey, that's all I know how to do. We will go down fighting.
I love that. All right, Wendy. I think Felice said she's going to stick till 11 this morning. You can stay all day if you want. But
if you do not have money, absolutely, that's just tap the screen. Tapping is clapping. Let's get to 300K. Almost there. Just tap the screen. I also don't have money, so totally sympathize.
Good morning, Wendy. How are you today? Wendy? What's going on? It's the request box seems like it's having some issues. We'll bring up Dolphin. Dolphin's always able to connect. What? Hi, Dolphin. How are you today?
Hi, Fax. I'm good.
Excellent.
Felice, I don't know if you remember me. I'm Dolphin. I sent you the whale the night the TikTok shut down.
I do remember. I always remember. I have a very good memory for people's comments I enjoy.
Well, I wanted to come up, Fax, and tell you about this woman that I found here on TikTok. Her name is Meredith Steele. Last name is spelled Steele. And she is she did her thesis on eugenics in Germany.
Okay.
And she was explaining how the MAGA here, they got so offended about him being compared to Bitchler. And it's just, they were comparing him to the 1940s. They weren't thinking of 1933. In 1933, he did not run on exterminate all the Jewish people. He ran on, we need to protect the German state.
Correct.
We need to, right. And it's the same playbook. I just wanted to point it out. If you guys are not following Meredith Steele, please follow her. I actually learned